I just hit 16, and instead of a birthday bash, I got the boot from my own house. No cake, no happy birthday, nada. Just a swift kick out because my sis Karen, the golden child at 22, is expecting. With a bun in the oven and our place having only 4 rooms, my folks decided my birthday gift should be shipping me off to my aunt's. Talk about a plot twist, right? So here I am, freshly 16 and homeless because baby makes 3, and apparently I don't make the cut. Seriously, my folks have always been champs at the bare minimum game, especially when it comes to me. But getting the boot on my birthday, that's a new low, even for them. I mean, I've mastered the art of expecting zilch to avoid disappointment. Yet here they are, outdoing themselves in the letdown department. And get this, they had their serious faces on the whole time. Not a single hint of a joke or a lame prank attempt in sight. It was all 100% pack your bags, you're moving to Auntie's. Unreal, right? After dropping the bombshell that they needed my room for the new baby and declaring I was old enough to live elsewhere, we hit this awkward silence, like a total dead air moment. Then they toss in this bit about still covering my bills until I'm 18, promising I won't starve or anything, as if that's supposed to smooth things over. But the kicker? They straight up said keeping me under the same roof just wasn't in the cards anymore. Yeah, because apparently space for me is where they draw the line. I tried not to get into a fight, but I couldn't help asking why not just turn the guest room into the nursery. After a bit of hemming and hawing, they finally spilled the beans. They'd reserved that space for Karen's boyfriend to crash. So let's break it down. My parents have their sanctuary. Karen and her plus one snag a spot, and even the unborn kid gets its own digs. And me? Well, I'm apparently the odd one out in this room roulette. Karen was conveniently MIA during this whole showdown, probably to dodge the guilt trip of seeing me get the boot. Despite our age difference, we've never really been at each other's throats. Our vibe was more like courteous roommates than siblings. But this move? If she's on board with shipping me off to make room for her upcoming bundle of joy and her boyfriend, it's a cold splash of reality. Maybe she's not the sister I thought she knew after all. The sting was sharper because it all went down on my birthday, but I kept my mouth shut and just nodded. I've come to terms with the fact that my parents are a lost cause. No words of mine will ever make them love me the way I wished they would. That harsh truth has sunk in deep. So, after getting the move-out memo and being told to crash with my aunt, I trudged up to my room, not to sulk, but to pack. It was a silent concession to a battle I realized I'd never win. They pitched in with the packing, but it felt more like they were hurrying me along than offering genuine help. When it was time to go, they drove me to my aunt's, chatting away as if we were on some happy family outing, completely oblivious to my silence and the world passing by outside my window. At my aunt's doorstep, there was no goodbye hug, no kiss, just a quick drop-off. My aunt, on the other hand, greeted me with open arms. She's always been more like a mother to me, genuinely enjoying my presence and showing me the love my own parents couldn't muster. I opened up to her about the whole ordeal, pouring out my disappointment. She was stunned, asking me to go over the details again, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. So I repeated everything that had taken place that morning, and her smile was instantly replaced with a frown. She didn't say anything to me, but grabbed her phone and said that she had to make a call and went to the other room. I didn't hear anything for some time, but then I heard the sound of my aunt fighting on the phone in a high voice. And that's rare because my aunt rarely ever screams at people, and she's a really soft-spoken person, so I knew someone must have pissed off. Pretty bad for her to lose her temper like this. Then she came back to the room, all red in the face and still looking very annoyed. And I learned that it was apparently my parents who had pissed off so badly. Turns out my dad spun this whole narrative to my aunt that I was the one who came up with the grand idea of moving out for the baby's sake. He made it seem like I was all for leaving my childhood home behind to bunk with my aunt. That's the only reason she was cool with the arrangement. She thought I wanted this. She's seen the tension at my house, sure, but believing I'd volunteer to leave was a stretch she accepted because my dad said so. My aunt, being the independent soul she is, in her late 30s with no plans for marriage or kids, didn't see a problem with me moving in. To her, I was just a new roommate, an addition to her single life, not a burden. And since my dad promised to foot the bill for all my needs, she didn't see any financial downsides to letting me stay. It's a setup that worked out, based on a story far from the truth. My aunt liked me, and she thought that I was the one who wanted to live with her, so she agreed to this arrangement. But now that she knew the truth, she'd called my dad up to confront him about it, because what they'd done was messed up, and she had to give them a piece of her mind. After the phone call, she was really upset, and so was I, because this was something I don't think any other kid my age goes through often. I'd always known they liked my sister more than me, but this was a little extreme. They literally lied to my aunt to cover this up because they knew how insanely horrible this was. They'd literally chosen to give up the guest room for Karen's boyfriend, who's in his 20s and has a job and lives in his own apartment. If they wanted to make it work, Karen could have easily moved in with her boyfriend. But it was my parents' insistence that she'd been living at home because they wanted to be closer to her. And they were ready to even sacrifice my comfort just to keep her close. I was very hurt, and so I decided to go online, expose my parents for whatever they'd been doing. I didn't know if my aunt would be on board with it or not, so I waited for her to leave the room for a nap. In a whirlwind of emotion, I poured everything into a post on my phone, detailing not just the cold birthday eviction, but the years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. It was more than a recount. It was a raw, unfiltered glimpse into my breakdown, a moment of vulnerability where I laid bare the neglect and favoritism I'd endured. The act of typing it all out was cathartic yet heartbreaking, and by the time I hit post, tears were streaming down my face. I powered off my phone, a part of me terrified of the fallout from my digital confession. Trying to distract myself, I picked up a book, but the words blurred, my thoughts elsewhere. Time slipped by in a haze until my aunt, sensing something amiss, found me. Her approach was gentle, a calm in the storm, as she inquired about whether I'd shared something online. The concern in her voice was palpable, a stark contrast to the dismissal I'd felt from my parents. I truthfully told her that I had, and that was it. There was no further discussion about it. So I switched on my phone and then saw that the post had been seen by several people in our family, and I'd received a lot of texts from my parents, and even from my sister in the meantime. A lot of my relatives have commented on the post and expressed how they were on my side. Some of them had even texted me and reached out to tell me that they were always there for me if I needed any help whatsoever. That was uplifting, and I felt better until I went through my parents' messages, all of which were filled with hate and anger. Obviously, they weren't pleased with what I had done and were demanding that I take the post down. My dad had said a lot of things about me in his texts, and even added that he wished I'd never been born, which was hurtful, but unsurprising. My mom's texts were along the same lines, and the only ones that were even slightly different were my sister's. She didn't say much, but told me that she'd like to speak to me in person if that was possible, and left it at that. I didn't know what to say to any of that, was just very overwhelmed by all the people I had to respond to. So I just kept my phone aside again and didn't say anything to anyone for the next couple of days. But what I did was block my parents because I didn't have any intention of talking to them anymore. With the law on my side ensuring my parents' financial support until I'm 18, I saw no reason to maintain any relationship with them. My aunt, now my rock, seemed to agree. If my dad reached out to her in the aftermath, she gave no indication, and we moved forward as if the world outside our solidarity hadn't shifted. Her unwavering stance was all the affirmation I needed. Her support was my sanctuary in this upheaval. In the silent days that followed, my parents became distant memories, their presence in my life reduced to the bare legalities. But then, out of nowhere, they appeared at my school, their expressions stormy with disapproval. My friends clued into the family saga rallied around me. They formed a protective circle, a barrier of loyalty, ensuring I didn't have to face my parents unless I chose to. In that moment, surrounded by my friends' resolve, I felt a strength I hadn't known before, bolstered by the knowledge that I wasn't facing this alone. But they kept yelling out my name, and I had to respond. I walked right up to both of them and told them that I didn't want anything to do with them anymore, but they didn't pay any heed to that and told me that I needed to come home with them right away. I didn't understand why all of a sudden they wanted me to return with them when they made it so clear in the past that I was not a priority for them at all, and felt like this was just them trying to redeem their image and reputation among their family members. So I told them that I wasn't going anywhere with them until they told me what was going on, as a way to try to get to know why they were acting like this. All of a sudden, on one hand, they looked pissed off, and on the other, they still wanted me to come back home with them. They told me that they didn't want my friends hearing this, so I told them to back off a little so I could speak to them in private. Once my friends were out of earshot, my parents told me that they were here to take me back because I wasn't answering any of their calls or texts, and they needed me to come back so that they'd be able to get their inheritance still. They explained that after I'd made that post, pretty much everyone in the family had become aware of the situation, and it had reached my grandparents. My paternal grandparents are quite well off, and they frightened my dad by saying that if they continued to treat me like this, then he'd lose his inheritance. They'd been told that if they didn't try and reconcile with me, treat me better, and make sure I was loved and looked after, then whatever my father was supposed to inherit would end up going to my aunt, since she was the one taking care of me even though she didn't need to, and my dad couldn't afford to lose the inheritance. In the complex weave of family dynamics and financial interests, my parents' sudden appearance wasn't just about reconciliation or concern, it was tethered to a substantial inheritance, a detail that cast their motives in a starkly pragmatic light. Despite their considerable income, the allure of added wealth was tempting, a sentiment I could understand from a purely logical standpoint. Yet, had our roles been reversed, I would have approached the situation with more tact and authenticity, not masquerading self-interest as benevolence. Their attempt to persuade me to return, framed as if they were extending me a favor, only highlighted their self-serving agenda. In truth, their actions were for their benefit, not mine, a reality they failed to disguise with any semblance of genuine concern. My response was dismissive, an explicit rejection of their financial maneuvers. I refused to be swayed by their pleas, walking away as their calls fell on deaf ears. The journey back to my aunt's house was a quiet reflection of the day's tumult. Upon sharing the ordeal, my aunt's frustration mirrored my own, prompting her to seek legal counsel. The aim was clear: to explore the possibility of altering the custody arrangement. Despite the current legal standing that favored my parents, the pursuit of a change was driven by a desire for stability and genuine care under my aunt's guardianship, a stark contrast to the conditional support offered by my parents. I also called up and thanked my grandparents for trying to fix this, but I also told them that I really didn't want to go back to living with my parents because now that I spent a couple of days living with my aunt, I finally felt like I was free. Living with my parents had been nothing short of suffocating, and I kept hoping that things would change, but they never did. My grandparents didn't live in the same city, so we didn't meet often. But whenever we did family gatherings and the holidays, my parents were always on their best behavior, so they wouldn't know how I was treated at home. It wasn't as if I was treated with cruelty, but it was more like ignorance and avoidance on the surface. It all seemed fine. But if people spent a couple of days with me at my parents' house, they'd know that they mostly pretended I wasn't even there and cared only about my sister. And after she got pregnant, that just got worse, and I was pushed to the sidelines altogether. So I told my grandparents all of this, and they reassured me that if that's what I wanted to live with my aunt, then they'd make sure that it happens. The prospect of my parents relinquishing their rights, coupled with their commitment to ensure my financial needs were met, brought a fleeting sense of relief and optimism. It felt like a turning point, a hopeful departure from the instability that had marred my recent experiences. Yet, this sense of progress was abruptly interrupted by an email from my dad, casting a shadow over the newfound hope. His message was devoid of anger or malice, but carried a weight of disappointment that was palpable. He critiqued my decision to share our family's private matters online, suggesting that such revelations were unnecessary, and that the family fallout could have been contained within the family, inevitably reaching my grandparents through my aunt. The consequences of my public disclosure extended beyond familial disapproval. It had ramifications on their social standing within the broader family network and my dad's professional life, as coworkers stumbled upon the post, inadvertently dragged into our personal saga. The email underscored his perception of my actions as a source of unnecessary drama, attributing the backlash they faced from relatives and his professional circle to my decision to make our private Discord public. His words, intended or not, imposed a burden of guilt for the repercussions they endured as a result of my attempt to find solace and understanding in a broader community. In his narrative, the complexities of our family dynamic, the pain of being displaced on my birthday for the sake of convenience, were reduced to an episode of drama, an oversimplification that overlooked the depth of hurt and isolation that prompted my initial post. The situation laid bare the intricate dance between seeking personal vindication and navigating the fallout of public disclosure, a balance between the need for validation and the unintended consequences of seeking it in a public forum. Update 1. First off, a huge thank you to everyone who took a moment to support me through your comments on my post. It's been overwhelming to see so much kindness from strangers, and it truly means the world to me. So, thank you truly. I've seen a lot of questions about why I didn't leave my parents' house sooner, especially given that my grandparents and aunt seemed ready to support me. It's complex, but the truth is, my home life wasn't marked by overt cruelty or abuse. As I shared before, it wasn't that I was treated badly in an obvious way. It was more about feeling ignored and like I didn't belong. That kind of neglect is a form of mistreatment too, albeit a quieter, more insidious one. In my head, I rationalized my situation by telling myself that as long as I wasn't being physically harmed or verbally abused, I was okay. I had the basics, a roof over my head and food on the table. That was enough for me to justify staying, to convince myself that I didn't need the emotional nourishment of feeling loved or valued. It was a survival mechanism of sorts, a way to cope with the emotional void by lowering my expectations to the bare minimum. But this ordeal has been eye-opening, revealing the deep-seated need for emotional connection and the profound impact of its absence. I didn't realize that I was being neglected because it had become so normalized for me. And as for why I didn't approach my family for help, I just didn't want to burden them. I was also worried about what would happen if they refused to help me out, and somehow my parents found out that would be very bad for me at home, since my parents care a lot about appearances and stuff. And that's really why I just kept everything to myself and tried to deal with everything while suffering in silence. My aunt didn't offer to take me in herself because she didn't want to insult my parents, and she wasn't even sure if I'd want to come live with her. So we didn't do this earlier. But now that this is what's happened organically, I guess it all worked out for the best. It happened a little late, but still better late than never. She's in talks with a lawyer right now to get my custody rights transferred to her, and it's going to be a hell of a task to convince my parents to give up their rights, since now the inheritance is at stake. But even if this goes to court, I know that my grandparents and aunt will have my back. My aunt's recent apologies have added a layer of healing to this entire situation. She's expressed regret over not reaching out to me sooner, recognizing the neglect I endured under my parents' roof. Her hindsight insight is bittersweet. It's comforting to finally have my feelings acknowledged. Yet there's a pang of sadness for all the years of missed connections. This acknowledgement, however, has cleared the air and significantly lightened the emotional load I've been carrying, casting a hopeful glow on the path forward. Regarding my sister, her reaching out has thrown me into a state of uncertainty. In the wake of everything, her text asking to meet in person left me at a loss for words, leading me to ignore it initially. Our relationship has always been marked by a certain distance, mirroring the emotional detachment characteristic of my parents, yet she was never outright unkind to me. The assumption that she was behind the push to have me move out, making room for her expanding family, soured my perception of her. It felt like a betrayal, intensifying the sense of isolation from my family. However, her attempt to reach out suggests there might be more to her side of the story, hinting at complexities I hadn't considered. The possibility that she might not be the antagonist I'd painted her to be in my mind is both confusing and a potential avenue for reconciliation. As much as I had prepared myself for further alienation, her gesture opens the door to a conversation that could either mend fences or confirm my fears. Navigating this uncertainty is daunting, but it also presents a sliver of hope that there might still be room for understanding and healing within my fractured family. So I didn't get back to her. We had a weird, tense, strained relationship, but I still liked her better than my parents, since she'd be nice to me whenever we did speak. And it wasn't her fault that my parents liked her more than me. So when? 3 days ago, she texted me again and asked me to visit her. I decided to call her and ask why she wanted to see me. I wasn't going to go back home, which is where I assumed she'd be. But to my surprise, she told me that she was living with her boyfriend at the moment and wasn't feeling very well enough to go out. So she was asking me to come to see her so we could have a discussion about everything going on in the family. She told me that she had a lot of things that she wanted to talk to me about, so out of curiosity, I did go see her. Once I got there, she first apologized to me for never speaking up for me, even though she knew that our parents were playing favorites and never favored me. They'd always ignored all my achievements to celebrate hers, and I was always the least wanted kid. The revelation from my sister paints a vastly different picture than the one I had initially conjured up in my mind. Her apology and subsequent explanation shed light on her own struggles and the miscommunications within our family. It turns out her silence was not complicity, but discomfort, and a misconception that I was content with the status quo. Her admission of regret for not intervening speaks volumes, acknowledging the role she played, however passive, in the perpetuation of my neglect. Learning that the decision to oust me from the house was made without her input was a shock. My sister was as blindsided by our parents' actions as I was, dismantling the narrative that she was the architect of my displacement. Her intentions had been far from wanting to uproot me. She had her exit strategy, planning to move in with her boyfriend post-birth, a plan prematurely accelerated by the fallout from my public disclosure. Her swift move following our confrontation with reality signifies a stand against our parents' expectations and decisions made at my expense. The fallout from her departure, marked by accusations of ingratitude and selfishness, underscores the dysfunction in our family dynamics, where assumptions have long substituted for open dialogue. This turn of events, while tumultuous, reveals my sister not as an adversary, but as another victim of our parents' manipulative tactics. This newfound understanding between us might not repair all the years of distance and missed connections overnight, but it's a step toward healing. It's a complex tapestry of emotions and miscommunications, Yet in this chaos, there's a glimmer of hope for rebuilding, not just for my relationship with my sister, but for each of us as individuals seeking to navigate the aftermath of our family's unraveling. So all that drama was for nothing. Ultimately, since my parents ended up losing both their kids, at least she apologized to me for being a bad sister and a bad person in general, which I forgave her for because I don't think choosing to be unforgiving and cold is going to help me in any way. We talked things out, and she told me the same thing that my aunt did, that from this point on, she'd be there for me no matter what. So that was nice. It's been a little less than a week since my original post, and I still haven't heard from my parents after the email, so I'm guessing they've given up on trying to get me back. I'm sure my grandparents must have had something to do with it since they did call me in the middle to tell me that my parents wouldn't be bothering me anymore and that I didn't need to worry about them showing up at my school or emailing me again. I hadn't told them about the email that Dad had sent, so I'm assuming that my parents and grandparents must have talked about things. I don't know what they would have talked about, but I'm sure my parents have given up now. Update to just 3 days have passed since my last update, and today my aunt told me that my parents have agreed to give up their parental rights and the paperwork and stuff will be complete soon. She'll be taking over the legal aspect of my custody soon, and I have mixed feelings. I'm happy that I'm finally going to have a home where I don't constantly feel unwanted and unneeded, but I'm also kind of empty and sad about some things. I feel weird that this is finally happening, but this is for the best. This is what I wanted. Update 3. Big news update from my corner of the world. It's official, my aunt is now my legal guardian, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. But wait till you hear the kicker. Turns out my parents decided to let me go, not out of some sudden moral awakening, but because my grandparents laid down an ultimatum. It was either say goodbye to me and keep half their inheritance, or cling to their old ways and lose it all. So what did they choose? Obviously the cash. Honestly, I'm not even shocked. It just confirms I made the right call. At this point, I'm just glad to be out of there and with someone who actually cares. And in a twist I didn't see coming, I'm still keeping in touch with my sister amidst all this drama. My parents? Well, they're scrambling to make amends before she has her baby, but she's taking some much needed space. Looks like I'm not the only one making big moves. So she's told them that she wants her space, and they need to stop bothering her every day. At this point, I can't help but just laugh at what a pathetic mess they've made of our own family. But whatever. I'm happy with my aunt, and that's all that matters. I, 28 male, got divorced from my wife, 26 female. 2 months ago, she'd been cheating on me with my estranged brother, 26 male for a while. It was 4 months back when she finally shared a big news. She said she was going to have a baby. At first, she told me that the baby belonged to both of us. But something didn't add up. My brother had been coming around a lot, and it got me thinking. So I got curious and peeked into her phone to find out the truth. I talked to her about the messages I discovered, and she finally admitted something shocking. She had been cheating on me with my own brother. She felt cornered, like she had no other choice but to confess. It was a hard truth to face. My relationship with my family had been strained for years. When I turned 18, I left home, and we barely spoke since then. They always made me feel like an outsider, even among my own relatives, and my brother was the golden child. I thought that it was a little weird to start the party meant for me without me, but then I saw the cake and completely lost it. I finally confronted my parents and asked them why they hadn't thrown me a party for an actual real achievement instead. And they told me that after my acceptance letter, they didn't want my brother to feel left out, so they threw him a party instead. Instead of getting angry or upset, I realized something heartbreaking. I needed to support not just myself, but also my brother. That realization shattered me. It was a turning point. I decided, right then and there, that I wouldn't return to them, and I stood by that decision. I financed my education by working hard and taking out a loan. Once I graduated, I shared a small apartment with a friend. It wasn't much, but it was my own space. I never spoke to my parents after I moved out for college, and neither did they try to get through to me either. Of course, ages have passed since then, and last year my brother reached out to me online to ask if I wanted to reconnect with him and my parents, since they really seemed to miss me. A lot had happened since I left home. Like 2 years ago, I'd gotten married to my ex-wife. I was leading a very comfortable life, but I don't think I'd ever moved on from whatever had happened with my parents, so I did end up agreeing to meet them. It was awkward and felt uncomfortable initially, but they were making an effort to fix whatever they'd done to me in the past, so I felt obliged to make an effort for them as well. Made a decision to invite them into my new life, hoping for a fresh start. That's when things took a turn. Introducing my brother to my ex became my first mistake. They met, and something between them clicked. It led to an affair, and she ended up getting pregnant. At first, I was overjoyed by the news of her pregnancy. I naturally assumed that I was going to be a father. But then, as I mentioned before, my brother's visits increased significantly after the pregnancy revelation. And while initially it didn't bother me, it started getting weird when he would touch my wife's pregnant stomach and speak into it. My ex told me that it wasn't that big of a deal, but I just couldn't shake off a sneaking suspicion that my brother had more to do with the baby than he was letting on. 6 months into the pregnancy, I decided to go through her phone while she was asleep, and that confirmed everything that I was terrified of. The text between my ex and my brother proved that it was actually his baby, and they'd been together for a while now. Not only that, my ex had no intention of ever letting me know that the baby wasn't even mine. She and my brother planned on telling me about the affair after the baby was born, and then she'd get a divorce from me and finally get with my brother while they live off the fortune with the child support that I'll be paying. The following day, I mustered the courage to confront her about the text. Initially, she denied it, but then she finally admitted the truth. That confession marked the abrupt end of my 2-year marriage. It was a painful realization. What followed was even harder to bear. My parents, in a shocking turn of events, sided with my brother and my ex. Their words about valuing both of us equally turned out to be empty. It felt like their promises were just hollow words. When my ex and my brother announced our divorce on social media and her decision to marry him, my entire family was fully supportive of their decision. Nobody cared that they'd ruined my mental health and broken my trust. Not just that my ex had been lying to me for 6 months and telling me that the baby was mine, it felt as though I had not just lost my wife, but also my kid. And it just hurt so much. My parents told me that this was for the best and once again refused to even act like my brother had wronged me. They, in fact, told me that I should be happy that my ex and brother had finally found happiness and should join the celebrations. Once again, I cut them out of my life, and that messed up my divorce as well. It was a staggering blow when my ex-wife left the marriage with a significant settlement and even took away my car. The support she received from my family, who sided with her due to her involvement with my brother, was bewildering. Her lawyer and she concocted a narrative claiming that I was controlling and toxic, alleging that I coerced her into leaving her job, despite the fact that it was entirely her decision. To my shock and dismay, my family reinforced these false accusations. They justified cutting ties with me by painting me as a misogynist with a temper, a portrayal that was far from the truth. So, the evidence was stacked against me and I lost a lot of money in the divorce. But thankfully, I got to keep the house. When the divorce was finalized, I was just glad that I was done with this crap now and wouldn't have to see any of these god-awful people ever again. Luckily, there's no waiting period for a divorce where I live, and my ex-wife didn't contest it either. So I was able to wrap it all up as quickly as possible so that I could move on with my life. It was difficult to forget about all of this, but I drowned myself in work and pushed myself to be better so that I could move on from this nasty episode as fast as I could. That paid off since 2 weeks ago. I got a promotion, that a position, better salary, and better company car, the works, basically, and I couldn't have been happier about it. So I decided to treat myself to a solo dinner date at one of my favorite restaurants. But I made the mistake of posting about it online, and within a day or two, my mother contacted me and asked me to come visit them. Their sudden interest in reaching out after everything, especially considering their support for my ex-wife's false accusations, left me utterly perplexed. I tried to brush it off initially, ignoring the calls for a few days. But then, the relentless calls escalated. And to my surprise, she showed up uninvited at my workplace. She refused to leave and ended up in a heated argument with the receptionist. It was an incredibly embarrassing situation, and I felt trapped by her persistence. So I promised that I'd visit in a few days, which was how I was finally able to convince her to leave. A couple of days after that, I finally visited my family. They'd used the settlement amount to move into a bigger house so they could accommodate the baby as well, who'd been born just a little over 3 weeks ago. I guess that the alimony was also being used to pay the bills. But truth be told, it didn't really affect me that much since the alimony was a really small part of my salary at this point, and I could afford it. My brother wasn't home and my ex was asleep, so it was just my parents who spoke to me. I didn't try to make any small talk and simply waited for them to get to the point. So, after around 5 minutes of silence, my father blurted out that my brother had been fired from his job and the alimony and settlement just weren't cutting it anymore. They said that they'd seen the post about my promotion and were hoping that I could help them out since they were running low on money now. My parents retired a long time ago. My brother was out of a job, and my ex obviously wasn't going back to work anytime soon. The alimony wasn't enough to pay the bills for a family of five, especially with a newborn in the house, and I knew that too. However, I was shocked that they'd even had the audacity to approach me for it after everything that had happened. I was so shocked. I didn't even have anything to say for a good few minutes. But finally, I came to my senses and decided that I didn't need to entertain any of this. I simply got up and left without a word. When I reached the door and opened it, I found my brother standing outside. My parents were telling me to stay back and hear them out, and my brother looked a little alarmed to see me there. I still didn't say anything and proceeded to leave. It was raining pretty heavily, and it was a short walk to where I'd parked my car outside their lawn. So I got completely drenched, and I was already in a horrible mood. Now, this is where I might have been the a-hole, because my parents and brother came after me, and while I was looking for my keys in my pocket, they decided to ask me for help one last time. And this time, it was my brother who was making the plea. He's always been smug and arrogant, a direct result of the way our parents treated us. So it was weird to see him asking me for help, and it must have taken a lot of trouble to convince them. So they were definitely being honest about the bad phase. I got really upset and kind of exploded. I told them to stop bothering me, and that if they needed money that badly, they could ask strangers on the street for help. I felt like maybe someone who didn't know them might feel more sorry for their situation than I did. After saying that, I got into my car and left them standing in the rain. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty satisfying to do that to my family since they'd done nothing but mistreat me my whole life. It's been 2 days since that happened, and, well, I'm not sure if I'm right anymore. My mother has been texting me nonstop, and I feel so guilty for not helping them out. I know I have a lot, and sending them a little money won't actually hurt me. But after everything that's happened, it just feels like I'm being used, quite frankly. So, AIT for not helping my family out with money after they took my ex's side in the divorce. Update 1. So I decided not to help them out. It was a pretty big deal for me since I felt awfully guilty about how I was just going to abandon them. It hit me then that they'd been treating me that way for as long as I could remember. Even during the divorce, they didn't hesitate to put me in a difficult spot. So I figured, why should I hesitate to do the same to them? I warned my mother to stop bothering me, or else I'd have to bring my lawyers into the picture. And that wouldn't end well for them. Now that naturally them. And so my brother showed up to my house a few days ago to talk to me. He told me that while he felt sorry for how I'd been treated my entire childhood, he couldn't help the fact that he just was inherently better than me, which is why he was also treated like that. And he also told me that I should stop being so weird with our parents for doing what any normal parent would have done in their place and just help them out since they're in a tough spot instead of holding grudges like a child. I laughed in his face because of how absolutely demented he sounded, talking crap like that. I told him that instead of trying to put me down and manipulate me into helping them out, he should probably be out looking for a job and not wasting his time like this. That touched a nerve, I think. And he started yelling at me about how I was just jealous of the fact that not just our parents, but even my ex-wife preferred him over me. I was retaliating by not giving my family any money. I didn't bother arguing back. Instead, I simply nodded along when he accused me of seeking revenge. I agreed that I was taking revenge, and I implied that there wasn't anything he could do to stop me. That really angered him, and he threatened to come after me, insisting that he'd find a way to make me pay and that I'd regret talking to him like that. Honestly, I'm not taking any of that seriously. In the least, he can try to scare me all he wants, but it's just not going to work because I know he's not capable of doing anything at all to me. I'm unbothered. Update 2. Well, 3 days ago, my brother visited me and tried to convince me to help them, but he was unsuccessful. My parents have already tried in the past and it didn't work out for them either, so this time my ex decided to call me up and speak to me. I was skeptical about answering, but then I decided to answer anyway, because if I didn't, then they'd probably visit again and waste some more of my time. So I spoke to her, and it was insane how entitled and cruel these people can be. She began by speaking kindly, acknowledging that both she and her family were facing financial difficulties. Despite acknowledging that I had no obligation to help after all that had happened, she appealed to my sense of maturity. She tried to evoke sympathy by highlighting how my parents had financially supported me throughout my upbringing. She also mentioned her efforts in being a good wife. Like, yes, sure. Except for the part where my parents didn't give a damn about me and always preferred my brother, and she actually ended up cheating on me with the same brother I used to complain about. So yeah, that didn't work at all. And I told that while I felt awful about what was happening to them, I was already spending a lot of unnecessary money by paying her alimony, which she technically didn't even deserve since she's cheated on me, but managed to get it out of me since my family had no qualms about lying and making me the bad guy for their gain. She started sobbing on call and told me that I was being selfish and heartless, which was just ironic when I still refused to help. She told me that my brother was right and that I left her with no choice but to get the law involved, and said that she was going to demand the higher alimony now and drag me to court to humiliate me once again. Honestly, I'd like to see them try the first time around. I was so emotionally drained and depressed, I didn't even bother fighting back or trying to prove them wrong. I just gave in and agreed to pay the alimony without even attempting to prove their claims as false. I never was toxic or controlling or any of those things that they claimed, so she had no reason to cheat on me and so didn't deserve a single dollar out of the divorce. But whatever. I didn't care then, and just wanted to get the divorce over with, no matter the financial impact of it. This time, though, I'm ready to fight to make sure that I teach my family the lesson of a lifetime. Update 3. In a shocking turn of events, my wife was true to her words for the first time and actually filed for a higher amount as alimony. I got a big job upgrade, but this time I decided I wouldn't just let things go quietly. I reached out to our mutual friends and shared everything that had been going on, even the things that had happened before. Most of our pals only knew we'd split, but had no clue about what really went down. When I told them, they were really surprised. I asked them if they'd back me up if things got serious, and they said yes right away. I also told my lawyer that I wanted to discontinue the whole alimony arrangement altogether since she didn't deserve it in the least. I spent the past few days gathering all the evidence I could find of my parents and brother being horrible people who never bothered to treat me like an equal, and on now hounding me for money just because they know about my promotion. I've had enough, and I needed to get rid of these disgusting parasites once and for all. So I wasn't going to stop and think about their feelings at all. I managed to convince some of my cousins who'd watched me get treated like an outsider in my own home while growing up to speak on my behalf, and they were kind enough to do so as well, even though we were never particularly close or anything. My lawyer was pretty pleased with whatever we'd managed to gather, and told me that this would be airtight, and we might actually be able to stop paying alimony. It was already known that she'd cheated on me, but the reasons given by my ex painting me as the villain and my brother as the hero who rescued her were all lies. And even though I hadn't tried to fight back the last time, I was certainly going to set the record straight this time. And I did so to my family had literally nothing to say for themselves. When I brought up several video testimonials that my friends and a couple of relatives had recorded in my favor to prove that everything that my family had said was a lie and that I wasn't the kind of person that they'd made me out to be. I guess that they'd figured they'd be let off the hook this time just as easily as the last time, but I wasn't that emotionally fragile anymore. And honestly, whatever they'd put me through had made me a lot stronger. So yesterday it was finalized that I won't have to pay my ex any alimony anymore in light of whatever new information had surfaced. And I was probably the happiest man on earth when I realized that it was over. It was just so satisfying to see the smug look completely wiped off of my family's face, and my ex looked like she was going to start crying any second now. But yeah, I couldn't care less about her crying anymore, and was just simply done with this whole thing. I thought that I'd go home and treat myself to some great takeout in the movie. But my family obviously absolutely had to do any and everything in their power to stop me from experiencing happiness. I was only a few yards away from my house when I noticed my brother's car parked right outside my home, and I was really confused as to why he'd be there. I still went in, and there was my family standing outside my door and blocking my way in. I was very taken aback and didn't even know what to say, but I decided to act like this didn't bother me and told them to get off my property if they didn't want me to call the police. That's when my dad spoke up and told me that I should be ashamed of myself for what I had done today. He went on to lecture me about how I had no sense of responsibility towards my family and had betrayed them all by refusing to help them out when they needed it the most. After he was done, I simply refused to answer or engage in any sort of conversation with him and stood there silently. I just didn't want to give them the satisfaction of getting a rise out of me, because I'm guessing that's what the goal was, to get me so emotional that eventually I'd give up and do something rash and stupid. But I'm not an idiot, and that desperate measures weren't going to help their case at all, which they should have realized by then. My silence probably pissed them off even more, and even though my mom demanded that I treat my dad with respect and talk to him, I still refused to speak. I could see them getting agitated because they'd clearly hoped for a huge fight, but nothing of the sort was happening. After some more yelling, my brother finally snapped and grabbed me by the collar. He then proceeded to try and hit me, but my dad managed to pull him back just in time while he yelled about how I was nothing but just a jealous loser who would never amount to anything. I mean, it was really funny coming from an unemployed guy still living with his parents and begging his brother for money to live on. But okay, I told them that they needed to leave or else I'd actually call the cops. And seeing how that broke, they should probably make a run for it within the next 5 minutes. Begrudgingly, they went away, but not before one last ditch attempt by my mother to shame me into coughing up some money. It still didn't work, and eventually they left. It's been almost a day since that, and they haven't tried to contact me since, and I'm truly hoping that it stays this way now. I'm 25 years old now, and just recently, I went to celebrate my dad's 49th birthday with the family. But hold on, before I dive into that story, I've got to fill you in on some drama between me and my younger brother, who's 22. This whole mess started about 3 years ago. Back then, I was dating this girl. We'll call her C, and she was 24 at the time. C and I were super close since high school. She was my world, and I thought I meant the same to her. The drama unfolded around Thanksgiving. I was out picking up some desserts for the holiday after crashing at a buddy's place because I was helping them move. When I finally got back to my place, I noticed something weird. C and all her stuff were gone. I tried calling her, but no luck. It just rang out to voicemail. I even tried to check where she was through her phone's location thingy, but it looked like she turned it off. Curious and a bit worried, I decided to check the footage from my front door camera. And guess what I saw? My own brother was there, helping C move her things into his car, and then they both just drove off. After seeing my brother helping C move out, I immediately tried to call him, but just like C, he wouldn't pick up his phone either. This made me super anxious and jumped to all kinds of conclusions. But then a part of me was like, no way, my brother wouldn't do something like this to me. You see, growing up, my brother and I were super close, practically best friends. Sure, we didn't hang out as much after I went off to college, but we still kept in touch, talked a lot, and even hung out whenever we could. So, in a bit of a panic and looking for answers, I called my dad and basically got him to have my mom call my brother. They put him on speakerphone, and when my mom straight up asked him where C was, his answer felt like a punch in the gut. He said, "She's living with me now. She broke up with OP." I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was frozen, hoping it was some sick joke. I went and checked his Facebook and Instagram for any clues, and there it was. Pictures of them together, hugging and kissing. That just broke me. All these thoughts were racing through my head, trying to figure out why he would do something like this. I was so hurt, but then that hurt turned into anger. How could my brother, who was supposed to be my best friend, betray me like this? Fueled by that anger, I drove straight to his place and started banging on his door, demanding he come out and face me. But instead of my brother, it was C who opened the door. I totally lost it and started bawling my eyes out. It all went down when I saw her. And then, out of nowhere, my brother pops into the room from the kitchen and is like, "Hey, go upstairs." That's when he drops this bomb on me. He and she were sneaking around behind my back. He's been sorry about it since my second year in college. But then, to make things even more dramatic, C marches down the stairs and goes, "You know why I dumped you? Because I was tired of pretending to even like you." That moment was a real eye-opener for me. The girl standing in front of me, she wasn't the girl I thought I was in love with. She was someone completely different. And I started thinking, is all of this drama even worth my time? Pretty quickly, I figured out the answer was a big fat no, and I just walked away. I always try to keep things chill and not cause a scene, especially when I know getting upset won't change anything that's happened. But let me be clear, I was super angry at both of them, and I decided right then and there that they were out of my life for good. Fast forward to now, I'm living my life in California, still flying solo. There was this family get together that was going pretty okay, until guess who shows up? My brother and his wife, and yep, they're pushing a stroller. Turns out they got married and didn't waste any time starting a family. So after everything that's happened, I'm in a place where I'm over it. Therapy helped me see that I wasn't the one messing things up. She was the problem. At a family thing, my brother tried to chat with me, but I just wasn't having it. I just kept talking to my aunt instead. After a bit, I kind of forgot my brother and his wife were even there. Then, when I was on my way to grab some more ice cream from the basement, my brother comes out of nowhere, scaring the heck out of me. He tried to say sorry for the mess he caused 3 years back, but I wasn't about to stop and listen. I just walked right by him. He didn't try to talk to me again that night. The next morning, though, my phone was blowing up with texts from my mom. She was all about me forgiving my brother, saying it's the right thing to do. Both my parents are pretty religious and have already forgiven him. But here's the thing, I can't do it. What he did messed up my ability to trust. He knew how important she was to me, and he went behind my back anyway, thinking I'd just be okay with it. But forgiving him? That's something I don't see happening. Ever. Update time. Before I dive into the update, just want to say thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts on my situation. Though, gotta say, some of you were pushing for me to get back at my brother in not so nice ways, including cutting him out for good. I get where you're coming from, but I need to clear up a few things. I'm not trying to make my mom and dad out to be the bad guys here. They actually forgave my brother way before we found out his wife was expecting a baby. And honestly, fighting my brother? That would just land me in trouble, like possibly ending up in jail, and it would just make things messier in the family. Now for the update. I had a serious talk with my mom, dad, and brother. We all sat down in my parents' living room, and I just laid it all out on the table. I told them straight up how I feel about what my brother did. It's the kind of thing you can't just say it's okay and move on from. It's not about holding a grudge forever. It's more like I can't see myself wanting anything to do with him again. How can I be cool with someone who went behind my back with my friend's girlfriend? And even worse, his own brother? That's not the kind of person I want in my life. My brother tried to defend himself, saying he's changed and wouldn't make the same mistake again. But here's the thing, what he did really shook my trust to its core. He knew how much she meant to me and still went ahead with it, thinking it would all just blow over. But I just don't see how I can forgive that kind of betrayal. It's not just about what happened, it's about the trust he broke. And getting past that? It's not something I can see happening, not now, not ever. So there I was, having a real heart-to-heart with my brother and our parents, trying to make sense of everything. My brother, trying to make amends, acted like the past was just a tiny mistake, forgetting he went as far as marrying and having a baby with the girl I was planning a future with. I was like, really? And couldn't help but ask my folks how they managed to forgive him. They told me they were super disappointed in him at first, but after he found religion and started to preach, they believed he changed for the better and let it go. I had to ask them, though, if they could forgive him so easily if they were in my shoes. They said yes, they would have, but honestly, I couldn't buy it. We went back and forth for a bit until my brother tried to tell me I shouldn't hold grudges, and I'm there thinking, you're one to talk. So I told him straight up that maybe he shouldn't have gone after someone else's girlfriend in the first place. That hit a nerve, and he actually started to cry. My mom jumped in saying I was being too harsh since he's already said sorry and made amends for his actions. That's when I laid it all out on the line for them, just like some of you suggested. I told them they had to make a choice. Either they respect my decision to steer clear of my brother and move on, or I'd have no choice but to distance myself from all of them, including my brother and his family. It was tough, but it had to be said. So after all that intense back and forth, my dad drops this line on me, saying I'd end up regretting it if I didn't forgive my brother. That made me stop and ask them straight up if that's really how they felt about the whole situation. My mom, with a sigh, finally said, fine. She admitted that they'd just have to accept my decision to keep my distance from my brother. I looked to my dad for his take, and he simply added, yeah. Feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion, I thanked them for sitting down and talking it out with me. Then, I turned to my brother, and I just had to be honest. I told him that no matter what he did from here on out, There was no way we could go back to how things were. I wished him well, but made it clear our paths were parting for good. After that, I just had to get out of there. I drove off to grab some In-N-Out because honestly, after a conversation like that, you just need a good burger and fries to help you decompress. When I got home, I was so worn out from the whole ordeal that I crashed hard. I mean, the second my head hit the pillow, I was out. Now today's a new day, and I've decided it's time to really start moving forward. I went ahead and downloaded a couple of dating apps. It feels like a good step towards getting past all this drama and starting fresh. Update 2. So, where do I even start with this mess? Feels like I've been riding the world's worst emotional roller coaster, and honestly, I'm just about ready to get off. Let's kick it off with that family gathering for my dad's 49th. Yeah, that was something. But hold up, let me backtrack a bit for those just tuning in. Me and my bro, we used to be tight, like best buds tight. Then this whole debacle with my ex C went down about 3 years back. She and I were high school sweethearts, and then boom, out of nowhere. She bails with my brother's help. Found out through a door cam and socials, yeah, they were together. Talk about a stab in the back, right? Fast forward to now, I'm in Cali doing my thing, single and kind of mingling. That family gathering I mentioned, it went from 0 to 100 real quick when my brother shows up with C and their baby. I've had enough therapy to not let it mess with me too much, but it still sucked. He tried to chat me up, but I wasn't having any of it. Then the next day, my phone's blowing up with texts from my mom, going on about forgiving my brother because of their religious beliefs and all that. But here's the thing, how do you just forgive and forget something like that? It's not just about what he did, but how it all went down. That kind of betrayal doesn't just vanish. But here's the real update. I had a sit down with my folks and my brother, laid it all out, how I felt, what it did to me, the whole 9 yards. My brother's there trying to say he's changed. But come on, he married the girl he stole from me. My parents are all about forgiveness, but I just couldn't. We went back and forth until I hit them with an ultimatum. Accept that I want nothing to do with him, or I'm out for good. Dad tried to guilt me into forgiving, saying I'd regret it otherwise. But nah, I stood my ground. They finally got it, or at least they said they did. Told my brother straight up, there's no coming back from this, and peaced out. Ended the night with some In-N-Out, because why not? Next day figured it was time to give the whole dating scene another shot. Downloaded a few apps and started swiping. Who knows, maybe it's time to finally turn the page on this whole saga. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Moving on, slowly but surely. Still a bit rough around the edges, but who isn't, right? Here's to whatever comes next. Update 3. So there I was, finally feeling like I'm getting my groove back, thanks to meeting Jay on one of those dating apps. You know, one of those rare matches that makes you think maybe the universe isn't totally out to get you. Jay's this amazing soul, kind, funny, and gets my weird sense of humor. We hit it off instantly, and it felt like I was finally turning a new leaf, leaving all the past drama where it belongs, in the trash. But as luck would have it, life loves throwing curveballs, especially when you least expect it. Enter C, stage left, sliding into my DMs like we're back in high school or something. Apparently, after she and my brother decided to play house together, things took a nosedive. My brother, the golden boy, found himself caught up in some serious drug issues. And C, she's on the brink of financial ruin, talking about how she can't make ends meet, and how she's been thinking about me, us, and all that jazz. She's laying it on thick, talking about regrets, what could have been, and dropping hints like she's ready for take 2. I mean, the audacity, right? There I was, trying to mend my heart, move on, and she thinks she can just waltz back into my life with a sob story and a my bad. The drama didn't stop there, though. My parents, bless their hearts, caught wind of C reaching out to me. Next thing I know, I'm getting calls left and right, texts piling up, all of them singing the same tune. Give her another chance, she's changed, family forgives, and all that. It was like they forgot the whole saga of betrayal that went down. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy for wanting to keep my peace and sanity intact. Then, as if I needed more drama, my brother reaches out. Yeah, Mr. I Stole Your Girl wants to chat, saying he's hit rock bottom and needs family more than ever. I mean, come on. The guy who wrecked my world wants a lifeline? It was almost too much to process. But here's the kicker. Amidst all this chaos, there was Jay, standing by me like some kind of superhero without a cape. We sat down one night, a bottle of cheap wine and 2 glasses, and just talked it all out. She listened, really listened, and offered her 2 cents without pushing me in any direction. Her take? Do what's right for you, not what's easy or what others expect. That talk was a game changer. It helped me see things clearly, not just through a lens of hurt and betrayal, but through what I really wanted for my future. So I decided to take the high road. Well, sort of. I replied to C, my words carefully chosen, wishing her well, but making it crystal clear that our chapter was done and dusted. No looking back, no rewrites. Hit the block button faster than you can say closure. As for my brother and the family drama, I laid down my boundaries. It wasn't easy, but necessary. I told them I'm moving forward, with or without their approval. The whole situation was like ripping off a band-aid that's been stuck on for too long. Painful, but oh so relieving once it's done. Now it's just me and Jay, navigating this crazy thing called life together. We're taking it one day at a time, making memories and laughing through the madness. And as for the past, it's in the rearview mirror, getting smaller by the minute. So, yeah, that's the latest chapter in the saga that is my life. It's been a roller coaster, but I'm finally learning to enjoy the ride, twists, turns, and all. Here's to new beginnings, leaving the drama behind, and maybe, just maybe, finding a little bit of peace amidst the chaos. Update 4. So, Jay and I have been going strong, right? She's been this incredible source of strength and understanding through all the madness. We've been doing our thing, exploring, laughing, and really just soaking up the good vibes. Life with her felt like I was finally on the upswing, like maybe I could close the chapter on all the past hurt and betrayal. But here's where the plot thickens. Out of nowhere, my brother, let's call him Mr. Rollercoaster, decides to crash back into my life with a vengeance. He's been on a rough path, and now suddenly, he's all about making amends, talking about getting clean, and wanting to reconnect. He even started showing up at places he knew I'd be, talking about fate and second chances. Just when I thought I could navigate that minefield, C pops back up. But this time, it's not just a text or a call. She shows up in person, tears in her eyes, talking about how she's hit rock bottom. Her life with my brother turned into a nightmare of addiction and financial despair. She's looking at me like I'm some kind of lifeboat in her sea of chaos. And here's the cherry on top. My parents are back on their family is everything crusade, pushing me to forgive, forget, and play happy families again. They're orchestrating family dinners like we're in some sort of sitcom, where everything resolves in 30 minutes with hugs and life lessons. Jay's been an absolute saint through it all, but I can tell it's wearing on her too. It's one thing to deal with your own drama, but it's another to have someone else's circus pitch a tent in your backyard. So, after a lot of thought, soul-searching, and more than a few late-night talks with Jay, I decided to take a stand. I met with my brother, face to face, in a neutral spot. Told him I'm willing to support his recovery, but I'm not about to rewind the clock and pretend we can pick up where we left off. As for C, I wished her well, truly, but made it clear that our paths diverged a long time ago for a reason. The family dinner showdown was something out of a movie. I laid it all out, my terms for moving forward, how I felt, and what I needed from them if we were going to have any sort of relationship. It wasn't easy. There were tears, raised voices, and more than a few moments where I thought I might just walk out and not look back. But believe it or not, it ended with a semblance of understanding. Maybe not full-blown acceptance, but a step towards mutual respect for each other's boundaries and choices. Jay was right there with me, a pillar of strength and my unwavering supporter. As for what's next, I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on building a life with Jay, navigating the complexities of familial relationships, and most importantly, learning to trust the process. It's not perfect, far from it, but it's real, it's mine, and I'm determined to make the most of it, come what may. So yeah, that's the latest. Life's a journey, and I'm just here trying to enjoy the ride, bumps and all. Here's to moving forward, finding peace, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of happiness along the way. Story 2. Hey y'all. So I'm sorry this is so long, but first off, these past 2 weeks have been hell for me until today. I found out on Tuesday that my boy for over a year had been cheating on me damn near the whole relationship with 4 to 5 different girls, and had got some random girl pregnant that he met on Facebook. He said he cheated on me after Christmas. Yet, I found out from his stepmom and stepbrother that he had been cheating for months with different girls. We were planning our life together, talking about kids, marriage, our goals, buying a house, etc. I never saw this coming. I trusted him. I loved him. My family loved him. I was so excited for our future. He never once made me think he was cheating. He was very attentive, loving, and caring, up until about a month ago, when I noticed we were having sex less. He barely complimented me, didn't want to kiss me, getting irritated with me over little things, etc. We had a talk 2 weeks ago, and I brought up how he had been acting. I asked him if he was still attracted to me, if he wanted to be single. Was he stressed out? I told him he could be single if he wanted to, but to just be honest with me. He told me that he wanted to be with me, but just felt like he wasn't where he should be in life, and felt like we lost our spark. Me being the caring and loving GF that I was, I asked him what he needed from me. I suggested we go into relationship counseling. I was always checking in on him, on how he felt, and he always told me we were good. This break thing that he suggested caught me by surprise. We were both crying a river of tears. Then he told me he couldn't stand seeing me so upset and left. I found out he left me crying in my apartment to hang out with another girl that same night. Fast forward to Thursday night. I showed up at his house with my best friend to cut him out. He had blocked me from texting or calling him, and he never thought I would show up at his house. Elmo, his stepmom and stepbrother, kept tabs on him and let me know when he'd be home. I contemplated for 2 days about not doing it, trying to be the bigger person, etc. But I felt so disrespected. He had gave me an STI back in September and we both didn't know where it came from. Now I know I got it from him cheating on me. I showed up at his house and barged open his door. The look on his face was as if he saw a ghost. He kept asking what I was doing there. I cussed him out and he couldn't see anything. He looked as if he was drunk and high and was reacting slow. He tried to put his hands on me, but my best friend jumped in. It felt so good to get my emotions out. His family was shocked and couldn't say anything because they had never seen me get like that. He continued to lie to me and said there were no other girls. I followed him outside, still cussing him out, and he tried to get in his car. I had my hand on the car window and he tried to close the door with my hands still there. I shoved the door back and he tried to slam it when the door panel popped out and fell on the ground. He then threatened to call the cops and I told him to call them so I can tell them about how he knowingly gave me an STI. He never called them Elmo. I'm now sitting in my car reflecting, and I realized that he was jealous of me. He always told me how he wanted to be the dominant one and the provider in our relationship. I was 22 when we met, 23 now, and I have my own apartment. 2 cars, great credit, lots of friends, decent job side hustles, nice car. I'm extroverted, loving family, self-control, and I never asked him for anything but his love, time, and attention. I also took care of him and would spoil him by paying for haircuts, putting gas in his car sometimes while still paying my own bills. He, however, grew up on survival, almost got kicked out. The military twice due to getting a DUI, made way more money than me but had terrible spending habits, is in debt, has a nice car that he can barely afford, terrible credit, can't stop drinking and smoking weed. Terrible family unit lives with his stepmom and dad, who is a bum and is overall a self-destructive what attracted him to me. He was honest in the beginning about his faults and told me how he wanted to change and be better. I was attracted to his potential and loved how he acknowledged his problems and tried to work on them. In the end, he turned out to revert back to his destructive ways. I am everything he wanted to be, and he knew he wasn't good enough for me. I remember he used to ask me all the time why I was even with him because of that. His resentment for me grew over time, and he felt like he had to hurt and humble me by cheating. I will admit he did succeed in doing that, but I realize he is empty inside. He didn't grow up surrounded by love, so how I could expect him to know how to give it and more or less accept it. He didn't even love himself, so how could he love me? Realizing this has helped heal me in a way for anyone that has been cheated on. Please remember that it is not about you. You can do everything right. And guess what? It will never been enough for the wrong person. You will love again. You will meet someone who is praying to run into someone like you. I know it's hard, but allow yourself to feel every emotion and try to take it day by day. Thanks for letting me vent. Story 3. I overheard my wife talking about her cheating experience with my older brother while she was talking to her therapist. She shared in detail how they both passionately kissed, and he sexually groped and fondled with her breasts ass over the clothes while we were visiting my parents' house in the storeroom. I don't know if they slept together. From the conversation, I only heard that they both kissed. This happened last year when she was 4 months pregnant. I am in deep shock, and I am shaking right now as I write this. I don't know what to do or what to say, or if I should confront her or him. My wife is a good mother to 3 beautiful young children, 6 years old, 2 years old, and a 4-month-old. She kept saying that she is trying to call him and get a hold of him, but he has ghosted her since. Now she wants to confront him for using her and then ghosting her. Update. We spoke today because she can see how I am extremely uncomfortable and sad. She asked me if I heard anything while she was talking to her therapist. I said no, I didn't hear anything. I told her, why are you so worried about me hearing your conversation? She said something along the lines of, there are stuff in the past and I want to get over it. Our discussion continued as she pressed me to talk. She said that she doesn't like to see me sad or upset. I told her that you are a liar. You say something and do the opposite. Quick story short, I told her. You tell me you are hiding stuff. Be honest and stop lying to me. She said I have done mistakes and have hurt myself in the past. I regret all the mistakes I did. I told her you didn't just hurt yourself. You hurt me. And then she said, our kids too. I said, of course. I told her I cannot go on life with you living a lie. You hurt me and gave me a hard time, just enough so that I can divorce you. Just say that you don't want this life and we can go on our separate ways. She said, no. This is the life I want. But I didn't know. I was lost. I am still lost, but not as lost as before. I am in a clearer picture now. She tried to hug me and kiss me, but I wasn't interested. I haven't told her that I know about her doing her thing, but if she knows I know, then we are definitely done. Story 4. Hi all. We've been dating for just under 3 years. We started dating during COVID and have had a good relationship with some ups and downs due to the nature of her work. She travels 2 to 3 times per year around the country. I've never had reason to believe that she would cheat on me previously. However, this trip to large companies merged, so they all went on a trip to get to know each other. She left me on Thursday with our 2 cats. This morning I was borrowing her laptop as mine died when a text came through from someone I didn't recognize. I clicked on the text and saw their conversation. To summarize for context, she shared a room with on a GF current Jeffrey guy she cheated with talking about being on the plane. On A, said there was lots of snoring, so I'm sure you had a good sleep. Harry shit, yeah, I sometimes snore if I'm really tired. I won't tell anyone. JF, yeah, obviously, Harry, keep this between us, please. JF, my beef would kill me. Nothing happened, but I'll see you when I visit his state. She's away for another 2 nights. Any advice on what I should do? Do I confront her now or wait till she's home? I never thought she'd cheat on me, but guess I was wrong, Lamau. Edit. To clarify, Jeff is not on the plane. She's staying 2 extra nights. Anna and Jeff were sharing a room with separate beds. Anna said she heard snoring too. Jeff. Harry says he snores when he's tired. Edit again. They're not on the plane. This is in the hotel room she's sharing with Anna. The messages are in the morning, prior to the events of the night.